Okay, 6.7. This is the last section on factoring, and we're solving polynomial equations. Equations mean they have an equal sign in them. So they start you out with something that's already factored. Normally you're going to see it this way, where you have to factor it. So if we were to factor this, we have no coefficient or no number in front of the x squared term. So that means we can go right to factoring. We know it's going to be x and x. Then we look for two factors of negative 63 that combine to be negative 2. So that would have to be a positive 7 and a negative 9. So what we want, and as we solve this, is all terms on one side of the equal sign and 0 on the other side. So they have factored this one for us, and I believe that's the way you'll start out. So we're going to take each of these factors, in this case they're both parentheses, set them equal to 0, and then solve. So here we'd subtract 7 from both sides, and here we'd add 9 to both sides. So what that means, if we were to put a negative 7 in here, negative 7 and a positive 7 would be 0. 0 times this parentheses would leave us 0, so that solves it. Also, the other factor, meaning if we put a 9 in there, 9 minus 9 would be 0. 0 times this parentheses would make everything 0. So as you put them into Alex, you're going to have two answers, negative 7 and 9. So on the next one, we don't have a middle term, and the first term is a perfect square and the second term is a perfect square. So that means when there's no middle term, you're going to have one positive and one negative. So the square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 25 is 5. So if you were to FOIL this back, you'd end up with no middle term. So then, again, just like we did up here, we set each of these parentheses equal to 0 and solve. So x plus 5 equal to 0. Subtract 5 from both sides. And the second one, we'll have to add 5 to both sides. Okay, then they're going to give you a little curveball here. Notice that not all terms in this example are on the left side or on one side and 0 on the right. So we have to get rid of this 12x and put it on the left side. So what you get is a negative 12x to both sides. And remember, you want to put it in descending order. So it's 6x squared minus 12x equals 0. So at this point, we want to look for, is there a greatest common factor? So in this case, we can take a 6 out of both of these numbers. And we can take, since they have a like basis, we can take out the lowest power of the variable. So we take a 6x out of the first term and left with x. We take a 6x out of the second term, we're left with negative 2. Now, remember that this 6x is multiplied by this parentheses. So the 6x is a factor. We set that equal to 0. Because if x is 0, 0 times our quantity x minus 2 will make everything 0. Also, remember that if you have a squared term, you're going to get two answers. So 6x equals 0, we divide both sides by 6. So remember, this is okay. If we have 6 divided by 0, that's a KO. You can't do that. Okay, so we set the first factor equal to 0 and solved it. And then we set the second factor equal to 0 and solved that. So our answers are going to be 0 and 2. So if we put either one of those numbers into our original problem, we'll end up with zeros. So that solves the equation. Okay, the next one is a little bit more difficult. So here, you need to do the operation first. So don't set x equal to negative 4 and 9x minus 12 equal to negative 4. You have to do the indicated operations first. So we distribute the x here, 9 times, or x times 9x, 9x squared, x times minus 12 is minus 12x, equals negative 4. Now, we don't have all the terms on one side and 0 on the right, so we're going to have to add 4 to both sides. When we do that, make sure you put them in descending order. We're going to get 9x squared minus 12x plus 4 equals 0. Now we got everything on one side and 0 on the other. Now we have a number out in front, so we can't go right to factoring. We have to use the AC method. So 9 times 4 is our 36, and our B value is negative 12. So we have to look for two factors of 36 that add up to negative 12. And in this case, it'll be negative 6 and negative 6. So what we're doing then is taking these two terms and substituting them for our negative 12x. Now we have 4 terms, which always means grouping. So we look at the first two and see what number we can take out of each. We can take a 3 out. And also they both have a common variable, x, so we can take out the lowest power of that variable. We take 3x out of this, we're left with 3x. We take a 3 out of this, and we're left with negative 2. Over here, on the second set, what number can we take out? We can take a 2. And let's take a negative 2 because this lead term is negative. So when I say take out, that means divide by. So we took out the negative 2. The first term when we divide is 3x. The second term will be negative 2. So remember, when you are factoring by grouping, you should get two parentheses that are identical. If they're common to both, they can come out. What's left goes in the second parentheses. So when we take the 3x minus 2 out, in this, we're left with 3x. Take the 3x minus 2 out of the second one, we're left with negative 2. All equal to 0. So now, we set each of those factors equal to 0 and solve. So in each case, they're going to be the same in this one. So we add 2, we get 3x equals 2, divide by 3, x equals 2/3. The second one, Add 2 to both sides. Divide by 3. Get 2/3. Now, because we had an x squared term, we have to have two answers. Even though they're the same, we need to put them both in. 2/3, 2/3. Okay, I'm going to stop now, and I'm going to make a second video. This is going to be an A and B part, because there's an awful lot to digest here.